Hey everybody, this is Kyla here from Waveflow, the mindfulness practice that creates ripples of acceptance, meaning, and appreciation. This season, I'm interviewing a series of founders, entrepreneurs, and small business owners to hear how they got started and are keeping up a practice of sticking with the intentions that they've set for themselves. So I first came across Cypress when I was at dinner with my family at Piazza D'Angelo in Mill Valley. We were there celebrating something, I can't remember what, and as it goes when you're at dinner with an 18-month-old, my daughter Ani was completely restless, and so I decided I'll just take her for a walk while we wait. So I unexpectedly wander with Ani into this stunningly curated, colorful store, Cypress, and my eyes literally glimmered as I took in the vibe. Even better, the woman who was working in the store showed me that there was actually a secret play nook for toddlers set up in the middle so that I could peruse the curation in peace. Are you kidding me? I was like, this is amazing. I remember at the time feeling so curious about who dreamed up this amazing new store. Fast forward a few months, I came across a message from Cass on one of the local moms groups and was like, oh my gosh, this is the owner of the store that I like so much. We met and I obviously fangirled hard over her store and overall aesthetic. And we decided it would be fun to create an event together and unite my obsession with leading Waveflow circles to her dreamily curated space. And that was how Declare Your North Star Mill Valley was born. So have a listen to hear about Cass's adventuresome path from art and travel into the retail industry, and her pivot from corporate retail at Stitch Fix into opening a business of her own in Northern California. If you love what you hear, come check it out for yourself. We're going to be hosting Declare Your North Star at Cypress in Mill Valley the evening of January 15th, 2026. And you'll have an opportunity to carve out space to get really clear on your own personal intention for 2026 in an uplifting setting. If you're like me, it really takes like signing up for something, getting out of the house, and where a person is like literally having me do the exercises to actually get something like this done. Because otherwise, if I try and do it at home, I get distracted by the many things on my to-do list. So I really hope you'll create this space for yourself and join us. All the details to register are on our website at waveflowapp.com. Okay, let's leap into my discussion with Cass from Cypress. Cass, thank you so much for hopping on. I was so excited about this conversation, and I would love to start maybe at the beginning. So for you, like whether that means to you like your relationship with like style or your relationship with working in retail, like take us back to what would later become the inception of Cypress.
Yeah, hi, I'm so happy to be here. So I think actually it does begin with style because it kind of talks to the ethos of Cypress and what we're trying to do here. So I would say I was like a very non-fashionable kid. Like I I remember my mom would give us money for back to school shopping, like maybe like $300. It was like a ton, but we had to buy all of our school supplies too. And my sister would come back and she'd have two items of clothing from Abercrombie or something, like she'd have spent on two pieces. And I would have gone to Old Navy and like gone to the sale rack and I'd come back with like 400 items for school. And they were like, $2 shirts and this and that. But I definitely wasn't into fashion, but I think it also had more to do with, um, being in a bigger body my whole life and feeling like fashion wasn't really for me. It wasn't for my body type. It wasn't for people that looked like me. And I think it wasn't until I was in my like early 20s that I started thinking a lot about like how did I want to feel when I got dressed and what did I want the story to tell? And I realized that by wearing clothes that maybe felt more authentic to who I am, or maybe told people who I am, that it actually gave me a real sense of self and confidence. And I thought about boutique shopping all the way back then and how exclusive that felt, and how even you can feel like, even if you're the ideal size or whatever that might be in society at the moment, that you can walk into a boutique and feel like they look you up and down and decide you're not wearing expensive enough clothing, kind of like that Pretty Woman scene or whatever. Um, or that even if you're just looking in the store, you can be judged by not buying something. And I started really thinking about that experience early on. And I think like as this evolved into Cypress later on in my life, it's something I really wanted to bring with me is like this environment that felt welcoming to everyone, whether they identify different, whatever gender they identify as, whatever body size they're in at the moment, whatever way they feel about their fashion. I wanted people to feel like this is a place you can come and look around and feel clothing and try stuff on and still feel really good about who you are at that moment showing up. So that's kind of the backstory to all this in a very vague way of how I got there. But I hope that gives you a little idea of the inspo.
Oh my gosh, there's so much there. And just this is like a side note, but I love there's so many like parallels that were popping up for me just as being a person. So when I'm not doing work on Waveflow, I'm a yoga and Pilates teacher. And I always think it's fascinating that is so let's say like I'll be on like a at a dinner or something and I'll meet someone and explain that that's something that I do. The conversation a lot of times can almost immediately turn into either that person like critiquing their body in some way or like I don't know, it almost always like goes physical in like a negative way when I even bring that up with somebody. And I'm like, "Oh no, no, no. Like I got into this industry because like I'm passionate about people feeling really freaking empowered in their body." And that's like not that's actually like the opposite of what I'm up to.
Yeah.
And I love that you brought that up in like a fashion context because I think it's such a an outstanding message for people, women, whoever it is everywhere that like, yeah, maybe there's this like stereotypical image of beauty that especially in the past was certainly like displayed by media and like that doesn't have to be a definition of beauty that you take on yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, really cool.
Also,
Okay.
well, I was just gonna say in the fitness space, like I'm somebody who loves going to different workout classes and gyms and trying things, but I also feel that same intimidation, almost a similar feeling to walking into a boutique, which is like, this isn't for me. This is for like people who have Pilates bodies, like this is not a space that was created for me. And it's really intimidating to enter those spaces. Whether, I mean, in my situation, it's just living in a plus size body, but in other people, everybody has a stigma in their brain about themselves about why they don't fit in a room they're entering. So I think it's just an interesting thing to think about what industries really promote that and how we can disrupt it.
Okay, so you've had this sort of, oh my God, I love what you're saying. Like I'm in Old Navy, I'm like getting all the things with my back to school budget. And then how did that evolve like later in your life as you maybe finished school and then thought about like what do I want to do with my life? Like where did that path take you?
Yeah. So my dad owned a garden center growing up. So I actually had been in the small business space my whole life working for him. And he took us to trade shows pretty early on. And we got to go with a small budget to the New York. I grew up on the East Coast. So he took us to the New York gift show and he'd say, okay, we need for our garden center, we're going to sell a few like handcrafted holiday ornaments. And he would let me like choose what they were that year. And I loved it. I loved like buying things and thinking they were going to sell and then seeing what the reaction was, 6 months later when they arrived in the store. And it was that part of my like business mind and buying background started really early on. And then post college, I traveled all over. I nannied in Spain and I worked on a horse farm in Greece. And I was like totally lost, like otherwise. Like I had a great time, but I was like, I have no idea what my career is going to be. Like I majored in art. So I was like, I don't know what that job is. Like it's not a major you take, like if you're going to be, if you have this really clear idea. So, but I was creative and had these, different feelings. But my Aunt Debbie, who I am in this venture with, she and I had, seen each other at family holidays throughout our lives and spent a fair bit of time together, but we weren't by any means, she's one of my closest friends now. But at that point, I was really like post-college, didn't know what to do. And she said, "Hey, I think you'd really like this city in Ohio that I just moved to. It's called Columbus. I have a home decor store there, and we've been doing paper receipts forever. Like, we don't have a point of sale system. Would you move to Ohio for a couple months and just come in and help us get a point of sale system for my home decor store?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have nothing else to do. Like, that sounds great." And so I moved to Ohio in 2013 and I ended up staying there for 6 years and we opened an apparel store at the same time. So we had Happy Go Lucky Home and Happy Go Lucky Her. And I started going to buying shows and like falling in love with the experience that I was talking about where we bought something and saw it in the store. But then there was this secondary really deep experience that I had where I got to see people try things on that they had never thought would look good on them or maybe were too afraid to try on and feel so positive in their body and who they were. And I fell so madly in love with this experience of making people like bringing people joy in a space that they had previously not experienced joy. And it became like addictive to me, like that experience of like really like being like, "Oh, I know the perfect jeans for you." Like, and going and grabbing them and putting and handing them to them. And they'd say like, "Oh my God, there's no way." And then they'd put them on and be like, "Oh my God." Like, so yeah, I did that. And then I met my husband there in Ohio. And so all these magical things happened. I always think of Debbie as like my true fairy godmother who just stepped into my life and really shaped it in such a wonderful way. And then my family was in California. My parents had moved. And I, after 6 years, told Debbie that my husband and I were ready to have kids and we wanted to be closer to my parents. So I quit my job. He quit his job. We drove across the country and got a job with Stitch Fix, with their buying team. I was on their kids buying team. And at first I started as a stylist actually, and I was really like styling boxes and I was getting that like giddy feeling of sending people things and all of that.
Wait,
Um,
Cass, can you pause and just share what Stitch Fix is for anyone who might not have used it before?
yes. Stitch Fix is a styling service. It basically brings your average everyday person, a stylist in their home. And it is a real person. A lot of times people think it's just a bot doing it, but I was a stylist. And so basically, I would get somebody's profile sent to me and I would read all about them and what they're looking for, whether that's clothes for the office or a new mom who's looking to reinvent her wardrobe or going on vacation. And then I would curate a fix, which was a box of clothing based on including for sizing and all of that. And I would curate 5 pieces that we would send in the mail, and then that person could try it on at home. And it was men, women, and kids that we were styling. And choose what pieces they liked in the comfort of their home, and then basically um, send back what they didn't like. And they didn't really have a financial commitment, so it was really fun. But clients could say, like, "I like this stylist," and then I would work with somebody maybe 20, 30 times. So it was a really cool experience. And so I started in the styling and then moved with Stitch Fix into their buying team. Yeah, I can keep going more.
No, this is so interesting. I don't think I realized this like styling piece of it that was happening in the interim after the
Yeah.
store in Ohio. Okay, so you're in California, you are doing the Stitch Fix thing. How does this evolve from doing that to like becoming a business owner in Mill Valley?
Yeah. So then I had one kid in 2020, the next one in 2023. I'm still working at Stitch Fix. I've transitioned to the buying team. I have learned so much about buying in such a different scale than we were buying for a boutique. We're talking about, here we're talking about buying one size run, small, medium, large, extra large, and at Stitch Fix, we're talking about buying 700 of each size. So it was just so interesting to go deep into the data. It was much more math and spreadsheets and predictions. And so I felt really grateful. But what I lost completely was the part of this industry that I love, which is not about capitalism, but about like making people feel incredible and giving them that experience. And I was like really missing that. And I was feeling pretty stifled by the experience of being in the corporate world as a mom of two young kids. It was impossible. Like, I felt very much like there wasn't a day that one of my kids wasn't sick, or I wasn't sick, or one of them didn't have school. And I was just always feeling like I couldn't keep up at work in my brain. I felt like I was failing on every aspect of my life, which I know is a really common mom experience. I know it's kind of a universal feeling by a lot of us, which is like, oh, I kind of am cranky and tired at home, and I'm cranky and tired at work, and this something's got to give. And then I talked to my fairy godmother, who again, and I said, "Hey, any chance you want to do this again?" And she had just been, I think, waiting for me to get to that place, maybe, um, because we love doing this together. I think the perspective when we go to a show together and we're in a showroom, we're like fighting and everybody's looking at us like this is the weirdest group of like fighting in a good way, bickering, like I'm like that's she'll be like, "Do you like this shirt?" And I'll say, "That's the ugliest shirt I've ever seen." And people in the showroom will stare at us like open mouth, like, "I can't believe you're talking to your boss like that." Like, you know, but we love going and doing those things together. And so anyway, she said to me like, "Do you want to do this again?" And I was like, "Let's do it." And so we started looking for a location, and we bought a building in San Anselmo, um, which is kind of a sharp left turn there. Um, and we put in an offer, they accepted it, and we were going to renovate this really cool building. And I was so excited. I quit my job and we were on the next step, and then all of that fell through. Yeah, there was like an issue with utilities that couldn't be sorted out and was going to take maybe years to be sorted out. And so, yeah, it was like this turning point of like, oh, I just quit my job. We don't actually have a store. What's next? And I was looking on Zillow, I think, or just even on commercial listings online, and I saw this space open up in Mill Valley that was a rental. And on a whim, even when we were still in contract with this other place and trying to figure it out, I drove over here and saw it, and I was like, I think this is the spot. So we did a hard pivot, and I think that kind of was the start of this dream and this journey of creating this new business and getting to be a part of it from the ground up for the first time and really be a joint venture versus coming into her store.
Wow, okay. I didn't realize y'all had bought a building in San Anselmo. That's a crazy
Or we're
thing.
about to, yeah.
Okay, so when you found the space, I guess I'm just curious as like a person who so I don't think I've ever worked in like a true store environment, but I spent a lot of my career at SoulCycle and then later at Forum, which are both like wellness brands that have, you could call like a retail component to
hmm
them. I would love to hear just because of your background, I guess, like maybe the differences between like as you're curating a shop for a person who lives in Northern California versus Ohio, like if that feels the same or if that's different. And then also what sort of ethos you wanted to lean into as you were opening Cypress.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I think Midwest fashion versus Northern California fashion, because I have to really just like make that distinction. Couldn't be like further from each other. Um, I'd say that there's a real casualness in which people in Northern California live that is something that we had to consider quite a bit in terms of like how we would curate this. Um, I think in Columbus, people dress up a lot more, but we were also in a college town, so the price point was much lower. We had a lot of young college students who were shopping with us. Um, but I'd say that something that I was super, super aware of and had to really bring Debbie up to speed on was that the consumer here is a very conscious consumer and a well-educated consumer, and they care a lot about the brand story, the fabrication, who they're supporting, where they're putting their dollars. And I just really kept bringing that to the forefront of what I was thinking is why this brand? There's so many brands out there. Like, why are we bringing this brand into the store? And I wanted to make sure that with those decisions that we are making, that there was like a real reason. And so we intentionally brought in a lot of stuff that was like made in LA or made on like we have this brand Jung Maven, which is like a sustainable hemp brand. Even our denim, we like tried really hard to like curate a collection of things that were special and intentional in terms of like that. And then if also the third piece of that was what already is represented in this small like Marin County area and what's missing and like is there space for it, which was a gamble. But what we found was that most places around here are very neutral based. Like everything is like really toned down, like grays and navies and black and white and that and cream and that there's mostly solids, not a lot of pattern. And I've always been like one to like want to look for a really special piece. If I'm going to buy like my basics, um, I want to make sure that there's something about it. Like if I'm going to spend a lot on a t-shirt, I want it to be like the softest t-shirt I own. Or if I want to buy like a dress, I want it to be like one of the prettiest patterns. And um, so we were really testing a market that didn't exist, in my opinion, in terms of pattern and color, and trying to disrupt the space a little. And I think there's some people who walk in and look like horrified. Like I like really shocked by different, patterns that we have in here. And then I'd say the majority of the reaction has been like this refreshing sigh of, oh, this is different. Like this is different than the other couple stores I walked into because it has, yeah, pattern and color and differentiation in that regard.
That was for sure what struck me when I like happened to wander in there with my daughter was like I was like, "Oh my gosh, like this looks like how I would want to design my house if I had like the energy to like
Oh,
do this."
that's
So,
so sweet.
yeah, like just like the colorful in a way that was so tasteful, like that is so tasteful. Like I love what y'all have curated in there. It's I think it's really really cool. And
Oh,
I,
thanks.
yeah, of course. I would love to also learn a little bit about like whether it's, I know in retail, I'm sure and managing a team in retail, I'm not sure how y'all divide up responsibilities, but I'm sure there's like tons of things that come up as challenges, whether it's like discovering the seasonality in a particular town or like trusting yourself. And I don't know, like I guess, could you share a little bit about any lessons you've learned along the way so far, or just anything that's come up as a challenge that you might feel like you've grown from?
Yeah, I think we're really still, we're not even a year old at this point. We opened last March, and I think we keep saying, Debbie and I, to each other, like we have to make it a full season, like all 4 seasons, right? Like a full year cycle before we have like a real like knowledge of where we want to make changes going forward. I think we bought really conservatively for spring when we opened because we didn't know when we'd exactly open and I felt really positive about like how much we had left at the end of that season. It felt like really manageable. And then fall has been really different and I think we just like went overboard a little bit and we had some extra things and so we've been having these conversations about breadth versus depth, which is I'll describe those two terms in a second, but essentially breadth is like how many styles you have, like how many different variations of styles you have, and then depth would be how deep you go into buying. So I think previously, we'd always been more on the breadth side of things, like buying a lot of different dresses and shirts and jeans and like having a bunch of choice. And we've started to realize that actually what we need to do in reverse reaction is to think more about feeling more confident in our decisions about what we both really love. Like if there's a piece we both are like, this is amazing, then we have to confidently buy deeper into that piece so that if we have multiple people of the same size coming in our store, that we can sell them the same item that they both love. And that's not something we've comfortably done before because it's a big commitment when you have to feel really good about that piece like and trust that it's going to hit. in the way that you think it is. So I think that's a big adjustment we've been trying to make is like, okay, so how do we take the learnings from this past year and be more confident in curating an assortment that is less very, that is tighter, but that we have more of it so that people are able to get the pieces in the sizes they want.
Yeah, I that totally makes sense. And I'm also curious just because it sounds like over the past like 5 years or so, especially your life has had so many changes, which is like something I can relate to too, having two little kids. It's like
Yeah.
the mom thing is a whole dramatic change, and then launching a business is like a whole other child dramatic change
Yeah.
situation. So I guess how does it feel when you like think back on yourself? Like just a few years ago, like just to have made all of these really big steps in your life into different types of challenges or adventures, opportunities, whatever you want to call them. Like, how does that feel for you?
I feel like another kind of universal thing I think a lot of us can relate to in having kids is there's this moment of like, who am I? Like, what's my identity? Like, because you're so consumed in being a parent and a mom, and you almost like kind of forget, like, do I have other interests? Do I know how to maintain a conversation that doesn't relate to like my child's like sleep training or like do I know how to do that? And so I kind of actually feel like the store has provided for me at this time of like real um transition, like this real like self quest of finding myself again, a place where like I can come to work, I can put on real clothes that like I put on after I drop my kids at school so they're not stained. Even though I still stain them somehow. But I can like come to a place and have like conversations with people and be a person who's not like defined fully by that experience. And it's actually been so it's a lot at once, but I actually think it's like created this space that I like so desperately needed so that I can show up and like kind of redirect my creativity and my thoughts and like who am I? And um so yeah, it's a lot at once, but I actually think like weirdly necessary to like put them together at the same time because of that early mom experience that's so universal of just being like, wow, this is really hard.
Okay, so speaking of other interests and hobbies outside of being a parent, we have an incredible, or I am ex incredibly excited for an event that we have coming up at Cypress really soon. So if you're around Marin or Mill Valley on January 15th, you can come check out the store and you're welcome to stay for a New Year workshop. We're going to declare North Stars together, so you can expect a sprinkle of visualization, of journaling, a little collage moment at the end. And you're welcome to come by. You can obviously visit Cypress whenever because it's a store that's open all the time. But for the workshop specifically, we'll be meeting Thursday, January 15th in the evening, and we would love to have you. I don't know. I also think a lot about how in a world where it feels like technology is so dominated by major tech companies advertising different things you can shop for, it's like a real treat to be able to support somebody in your like local community who's gone out on a limb to like make the town more elevated and offer an experience that's like slightly more elevated than what you can get online. And I couldn't recommend enough supporting a business with another Marin parent and like just getting in there and even seeing the space, even if you don't plan to buy anything. It's a really beautifully curated store. Okay.
Oh, thanks.
Of course. Cass, thank you so much for hopping on. I can't wait to see you again next week and
I
we'll
know, I'm so
have a
excited
little
for the
fun.
event. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm really excited and the people I've talked to seem really excited, so I can't wait and I'm excited to set my intentions. I'm like, ooh, I start thinking about it now.
Yay. I'm excited to pop back into the store and decide what am I getting myself for Valentine's Day.
Yes, there you go.
Great. Thank you so much, Cass. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Bye.